This right here is the chart shown off today by Games Workshop. It gives some official stats on how factions are performing right now in the tournament meta. These are the official Games Workshop ones, and not just ones that fans have figured out themselves from the major tournaments online. By Games Workshop's own admission, this is a very crude representation of how factions are performing. It doesn't go into what I think is important, which units people are taking, and how many of each kind. If we know that, then we can see where the points are going to be balanced. For example, if a lot of people are taking Acolytes, a large number of Genestealer Cult Acolytes, by the way, they are taking large numbers of Genestealer Cult Acolytes, then we can expect a points increase on Genestealer Cult Acolytes. We are, of course, expecting that. What it also doesn't go into are how many players there are for each different faction. This isn't the top 20 players for each faction across the world. It is every faction combined. I'm mostly talking about the Genestealer Cult and the Adepta Sororitas. They tend to have a lower player base than, say, Imperial Guard, Tyranids, Necrons, Eldar, Space Marines. The armies that have been fully supported for many, many years. And especially the ones that have come out in starter sets. So right now we're seeing a lot of Tyranid players, a massive amount of Space Marine players, as well as Necrons and Death Guard. Those particular numbers are not represented here, and it does mean that Space Marines will be dragged down a bit. Because there are a lot of Space Marine players, there will be fewer good Space Marine players as like the baseline average skill. Whereas for Genestealer Cult, there aren't that many of us. Those of us that have been going are mostly ones that have been playing since 9th edition, when we were very nicely balanced. 9th edition was a lot of fun for us, and maybe you've been going for longer, so you know how Genestealer Cult play, and they do play quite differently. Yes, I do accept that the Genestealer Cult are doing well right now, but a part of that, not all of it, comes from the number of elite players we have, and what percentage of the number of people at tournaments playing Genestealer Cult are just those elite players. The vast majority of games that people play across the world are nothing like the tournament ones. There's more casual terrain, it's not set up by the inches, you'll play random missions rather than prescribed missions that are being set by the tournament organizers, you'll be going all out in tournament to win, rather than bringing what's going to be fun and silly because it's going to make your opponent laugh. I have been against armies that have been mostly Chaos Spawn. It was a fun experience, but it's not going to be something that turns up at tournaments. Yes, you'll be trying to win, but you'll also be trying to give your opponent a good time in these matched play local games. Because you see, there are now 4 types of Warhammer game. There's open play, which is pretty much whatever you want, narrative games to do ongoing campaigns and things like Crusade, matched play, which is your basic standard rules that you play against anyone and everyone, and then there are tournaments. So things like the Legends units, you can take them in open narrative or matched play. You just can't take them at tournaments. So there is no balance considered for things like the Amble or the Damned Legionnaires that I recommended as fun alternatives for allies to the Adepta Sororitas. That's a video that's linked there. Thinking of the Adepta Sororitas, because I am always thinking of our battle sisters. For 10th edition of Warhammer 40,000, the metawatch discussion was a lot about Leagues of Votann, Tau, not necessarily battle sisters. You can see them there at 41%, but all of the armies they planned to fix had 40% or less win rate. Those were the ones that were named, them and the armies right at the top. Their general hope is trickle-down theory, where they hope that if they nerf the top factions and boost the lower factions, suddenly battle sisters will be fine, and not just end up at the bottom with a 30-something% win rate. Okay, so Genestealer Cult will be changing, but the battle sisters get scraps and hope and pray that there will be something for them. But we're going to have to just keep the faith. So how do Games Workshop plan to change things to be better and fairer? By the time 9th edition ended, it was a very big bloated mess with 100 FAQs and erratas and all sorts of other things, but it was also considered to be one of the very fairer times to play Warhammer 40,000. Very few people remember back to 2nd edition when the amount of data you could get was basically non-existent. There would be like 2 vaguely matched tournaments run by Games Workshop in Nottingham, and that would be their only data. So they would get the meta information from just those groups. So 2nd edition was a mess in terms of rules. Very little points balance, very little balance overall, but still quite a bit of fun. And that's what we need to focus on. Are we having fun? But this is all about the meta. What is Games Workshop going to change? Now, in mid-September, they are going to be changing the points. So previously in 9th edition, they would do a balance to the rules and different units every 3 months and change the points every 6 months. For 10th edition, that is reversed. Every 3 months they change the points, because that is a very simple document that they can update, and because there are no separate weapons entries for the different units, they only need to update one value to reflect a whole unit. Much easier on the typist's fingers. And every 6 months, they will do a rules change actual balance patch that you may be familiar with. So mid-September, points will be changing, and here's what I expect for the Genestealer cult. Neophytes and Acolytes will go up in points. Acolytes especially. Because I don't think they're going to suddenly switch how they do points to be more reasonable and what we're used to from the end of 9th edition, we're not going to see a separate points cost for a demolition charge. It's just going to be all rolled into the unit, and they are expected to go up. Neophytes also are very powerful for holding objectives and coming back forever, so their points will almost certainly go up. The Jackal Bikers recently had a rules change so that their demolition run only works once per turn. We're not doing multiple sets of mortal wounds, so they should be fine as they are. But what I'm not expecting to happen for the Genestealer cult is any kind of points reduction. They're unlikely to say, oh, okay, I noticed that the Kellamorph is not being taken, and the Metamorphs are not being taken when compared to the very, very similar Acolytes. They are unlikely to get points changes because Games Workshop is going to go, okay, these are all the units that are problems in the best performing faction. We'll increase their points and call that faction done. That's what I expect. Maybe for Eldar, we will see a points increase again on the Fire Prism. But I wouldn't hold your breath. It got a points increase along with indirect fire units, like the Exorcist, and that is because one of the rules you have on the Fire Prism lets it fire indirectly if you have more than one of them. The Aeldari are winning 2/3 of tournament games, and that 1/3 loss, and not just Eldar versus Eldar. The local meta is also quite different. In 9th edition, I was used to facing a lot of Eldar Wraiths, Wraith Guard, Wraith Knights, Wraith Lords, whereas I talked to Proxy Hammer in the United States and said, oh no, we didn't really have that. The Eldar meta where he was a lot of fast units, Wind Riders and such, and he rarely saw Wraith Guard in 9th edition. So I encourage you that regardless of what's happening here, play some games. Don't just look at the chart and say, oh, well, now there's no point playing my Death Guard. You can win with Death Guard and have fun with them. And I have another video about Genestealer cult, how they play with them and play against them as a faction as a whole. Hopefully that'll be out tomorrow. The Battle Sisters points, just overall, if we could have a reduction in the number of points that it costs, especially for the Retributors, their PPM is rather terrible. PPM stands for points per model. I think it stands for points per martyr. They are 130 points for 5. Compared to Devastator squads from the Space Marines, Devastator squads are much better, have a much wider range of weapons they can have, and cost less. Dominions cost 130 points for 10, and Retributors used to be 1 or 2 points more than Dominions, not double. 10 Dominions for 130 or 5 Retributors for 130 doesn't seem quite right. The regular Battle Sisters at 110 points are a very popular choice, and they should be because they are our only battle line unit. And I hope that Games Workshop recognizes this and doesn't increase their points based on the number of people who are taking large numbers of Battle Sisters. For 110 points, they compare quite well to Tactical Marines and Intercessors. That's okay. The Battle Sisters Army Special Rule is also not amazing. I have complained about it before. Haha. And there are certain ways to get the best out of it. I know that all of the Army Special Rules are nowhere near equal. The Imperial Guard need to have officers that issue orders in order to use their army rule. Battle Sisters, ideally, have to sacrifice units to generate more miracle dice to make the other parts of our army good. Same for Necrons. Same for the Tyranids. They need special units to use the Shadow in the War. The Space Marines, though, works all the time for any unit. Orcs also have a rather amazing rule. It is once per game, but I would like that instead of miracle dice. Suddenly having the whole army with a 5+ invulnerable save for a turn could actually suit Battle Sisters quite well. I hope that when they analyze points, they use the Space Marines as a baseline. They have every kind of everything, and can ally in the light infantry and the knights that they're otherwise missing from their roster. Until, 12th edition, when the Dreadnought Primaris Extremis comes out, piloted by 2 injured soldiers, one of which is a former chapter master, then the Bjorn model can be retired. Don't call me crazy, you know it'll happen. So you know how bad the points are, and why that is putting some people off from playing the Battle Sisters. Should you play them? Yes, of course you should. It doesn't matter how bad points are, you can have fun in Crusade and Combat Patrol. It doesn't matter if Games Workshop doesn't support Battle Sisters. They are a lot of fun. They have a unique style that no other sci-fi setting has. Nuns in heavy armor, without being sexualized. Anymore. They have scars, and we love them and recognize that the beauty in them is about how fast you can fire your bolt gun with accuracy. They are the underdogs and we love them. They lose a lot of troops, and still more sign up to become Battle Sisters. Will they do well in a tournament? Unlikely. If you have a lot of factions you like, and Battle Sisters are one of them you are considering, should you pick Sisters? No, probably not actually. The other factions will be better supported with rules and models and beneficial points. But if, like me, you love the idea of regular humans fighting without gene modification or alien trickery, with faith alone to sustain them, that one day the Battle Sisters will be supported. Ask me again if you should play Battle Sisters, and even when I've given you so many reasons not to, the reasons why not many people play them, and talked through most of a video about why you shouldn't play Battle Sisters, ask me again, and I will say, I will keep playing Battle Sisters, and you should play Battle Sisters too. But if tournaments are your jam, this is my advice on how to win at tournaments. My darlings and viewers, play Battle Sisters.